And I'm very picky about personalities and who I pick on the crew
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody who's there really wants to be there and is generally a happy person, so
Right.
because
Right.
you spend 14 hours a day with them, and it's to do that with someone who is there for a paycheck or doesn't really want to be there, it changes the whole dynamic. On this last film I did, one of the best experiences of my career, I was
Wow.
working with a British director. Her name is Jessica Swale. We were doing a movie about a relationship that didn't work out, and they share custody of a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that she was so happy to be filming in America. We had great actors. We had Zoe Deschanel, Charlie Cox, and she was just so happy to be filming a romantic comedy here in America, where they make romantic comedies.
Right.
And every day she was so thankful to everyone and kind to everyone that the whole crew just wanted to do more for her.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be one of the best experiences of my career.
Interesting. And then, so what's the name of the film that you just finished?
Right now it's called Merv, which is the name of the dog. And,
Right.
and the story goes that you don't know why, but it's a couple who split up
Mm-hmm.
and they share custody of their beloved dog. And as they do split up, the dog becomes super depressed. And they're afraid that the dog's going to die of sadness.
Yeah.
So they get advice and they figure out that the best way would be to take the dog to this place, which we created, which was like a Club Med for dogs that we built in Carolina Beach in Wilmington. And it's got everything. It's got merry-go-rounds for dogs and swings for dogs and, like a go-kart track where
Yeah.
we put chihuahuas on remote control cars and they're driving around. Sweet. And within the story, you figure out why it was that they split up and the assumptions that they each had of each other, and how oftentimes people just assume that someone is thinking a certain way and they're not. And it was really interesting. It was really lovely and beautiful actors, and they did a great job. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a feel-good movie, and a restaurant for dogs where there's only food for dogs. They're really fun stuff.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
we
you're touching on my hot spots. You mentioned earlier being a therapist for the director. I'm a former psychologist, and now you're talking about a movie about a divorce. I'm a
there
divorce
you
lawyer,
go.
and it's only been a couple of years since California allowed the courts to get involved in dog or cat custody cases. Before then,
Really?
yeah, before then, pets were treated as chattel. Like, you get the coffee table, I'll get the dog.
Wow.
And California is one of the first states in the country to really look at what is this animal, who's it connected to, who took care of the dog, who used to walk the dog, all those sorts of issues. It comes up in a lot of cases. Dogs are very important to people.
Yeah, definitely. And they're like a child, right? And it's good because they were forced to the couple was forced to confront their differences, and
Yeah.
and they both went through a cycle of how to get better,
Mhm.
and which which is nice, to realize that in order to be functioning well in a couple, you need to also be okay with yourself
Yeah.
and and be strong on your own in order to be strong in a relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a picture with good moral to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way whether it's the screenwriter, director, instead of having a child and two people fighting over the child and then trying to figure out what's right with the child, which would be a lot tougher of a subject for a film. It's not a film I would want to see. You put the dog in that position. Now I'm interested in seeing the movie. I want to see what comes of that, because at first, maybe you think it's going to be silly, but it really does have a lot of meaning underneath it.
It does. And we treated the dog, we had a total of 50 trained dogs.
Right.
the star dog, there were four of them because one was better at being happier, one was better at being sad, the other one could
Wow.
do more tricks. And I have experience shooting animals. I did a movie called Cats and Dogs once upon a time. And I have the patience, to work with it. And also I wanted to really get into the dog's perspective at times. And I even played with the idea of, the fact that dogs have different sensitivities for color and such.
Mhm.
But in the end, it was not so much, it would have been a little gimmicky. So
Right.
instead, I just got really close into the facial expressions and treated the dog like a regular actor, with close-up angles, with close and wide, So it puts the audience right in the dog's emotion. So we'll see. I think it's going to be really good.
That sounds great. I'm going to ask you an unfair question.
Sure.
Of the 40 plus films that you've worked on over your career, do you have any favorites, and why were they your favorites?
Without a doubt, it's Home Alone. It was my first film, uh, that was well organized and a studio film. Um, I was scared, thinking that any day they're going to figure out that I'm not they don't know what I'm doing,
Right.
and so there was that energy to it, and I tried so hard on every setup, every shot to do something that was worthy. And it was the result of it. It was the reception it had, and it was the empowerment of young kids who watched the movie and felt like, oh, I don't have to be afraid of the boogeyman, living in the
Yeah.
closet. I can defend. This is my house. I have to defend it. And I didn't realize what a strong emotion that is in kids.
Yeah.
And it resonated throughout the world. We made the movie at the time. It was number one at the box office for 14 weeks in a row,
Yeah.
and everyone just loved it. And because it was fun for kids, but it was also touching. It had a lot of heart, and in the movie, when tickets were $7 each at the movie theater, it did almost 300 million here in the U.S. and then 550 million worldwide. And the sequel to it did about 75% of it. So it was a huge,
Yeah.
huge financial hit and a huge critical hit. So it made me feel good that I was part of something that brought so much joy and empowerment to young kids.
Hmm.
So that's got to be my favorite. But
Yeah, and that perspective from the child's perspective and all the emotions he goes through at first, and then realizing he can do things and setting up the people who walked around, all that stuff. I think I don't know. I don't think there were movies from that perspective before Home Alone.
not really. And I spent the time preparing with Chris Columbus. I spent a lot of time on my knees,
Hmm.
seeing what the world looked like from a 7-year-old's perspective.
Yeah.
And everything's different when you get lower, and that same idea that when you go to the house where you were raised, everything looks so small.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to do the reverse. I wanted to